$830 million for surveys anyone's child in junior high could have put together, or AI could have done for free. $830 million. So that's one that we've stopped.
It's a fraud. But we've had many fraudulent contracts that were caught by the work that Elon and his people are doing.
I think every state, everybody should have a Doge working for you on some level. I'd like to see how this is all going to come into bringing the deficit down and fixing up the systems and making everything lead and mean for the first time, maybe in my lifetime. David Bahnsen from the Bahnsen Group is in studio. He is the author of Full-Time Work and the Meaning of Life. David, your thoughts about what Doge has done and statements like Governor Burgum just made.
I love what you said about every state should have a Doge. And I want to point out for listeners, Brian, this is so important. Every business has a Doge. Sometimes it's the mom and pop that run it. They're the Doge because they're keeping an eye on the cash register. They're keeping an eye on the checking account. Some large organizations have other people. But when there's business involved and self-interest, somebody's making sure that there's not money being wasted, fraud, waste, corruption. The whole point of a Doge at government is because there's nobody doing that. There isn't that eyes and ears because there isn't the incentive. It isn't their money. People are not the same about other people's money that they are about their own. So their incentives and their awareness, their knowledge is different in the governmental sector than it is private sector, which is why there are people like us that are believers in a limited government and want more of a private sector because we believe it's more efficient. There's an embedded Doge in every private sector business.
Where's the so far? How do you feel about the way they're approaching things? I mean, they have a Doge.com, Doge.gov.com. Yeah. You can see some of the stuff. It's put in an organized way, but it is haphazard. You don't know what is being cut, what is new. Is this really going to count? We don't see a tally.
There's been a lot of mistakes, too, and that kind of bothers me a bit. I liked what Governor Mitch Daniels had said about it a couple weeks ago. He's pretty much supportive of what Elon's doing, as I am, but said, I wish that they would talk less, do more. Because I'm telling you, if they did everything they're doing and just didn't say a word, no press, no website, no social media, and then came out in 3 months or 6 months with a list of what they had gotten done, signed, sealed, delivered, it would be so much more effective. Right now, it's a little chaotic, and they like that too. I'm more of a, measure twice, cut once kind of guy. But I think that overall, there's no real great way to do this. Okay, you can't get rid of programs and make everyone happy. I wish that they would do it with a little less chaos because it matches my style and personality. But this lends itself to some chaos.
But David, talk about the hard thing about running your own business, and that's letting people go. And that's what they're doing now. They did this they're doing it with the tens of thousands of people and getting rid of whole programs. And maybe some of these people are good, but you only been there a short period of time, and your goal is to cut down the workforce.
See, I think, Brian, that analogy is a little bit lends itself to a criticism because with a business, if I'm letting people go, there's no way I'm doing it nonchalantly. I want to know who are the biggest liabilities, who are my weakest links, who are my strongest people, and I'm going to my managers and my people to find out who's the right people to let go here, who do we need to keep. I don't think they really went off after quality. They did it kind of just broad-based, and here's a buyout.
So you don't like that? You didn't like that?
I think it could have been done better. And then the reason why I don't like it is I also believe it would have then resonated more with the American people, is you want some political capital here. You want buy-in. Doge was polling 20% more popular when they started than now, and there's no reason for that. But I think part of that has to do with style, and it might be unavoidable because, like you said, no one likes people getting fired.
See, people say on the left and right, they say, I'm part of the Doge committee. I wanted to cut government. I wish they would have cut me in, and I think that's a fundamental problem. Yeah. Because if you put politicians in there, they're elected to have the interest of their people. But the Doge is there for the interest of the country.
But not politicians, though. I'm not talking about elected people. I'm talking about, this was sort of Secretary Rubio's point. I think the cabinet people should have a big say in.
I think they have restructured.
They have.
But see, that's why you can't have a politician in. Even if I'm Republican or Democrat, if you put me in the office and all of a sudden you're going to cut a program that's got a huge building in my district, and people are going to act in their self-interest, you're almost saving them from themselves. Yeah. So they could go, listen, I had nothing to do with this. They didn't factor me in, those damn Republicans. Yeah. Or, you know what, these Doge people did that. The cabinet secretary never called me about this.
The analogy I used on Fox and Friends was I said, and I hate this line because it came from either Lenin or Stalin, but it's a good line, that to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. I just want to know what the omelet is. What is it we're trying to get done here? And then the broken eggs along the way. Some people get fired. Some budgets get cut. Certain things, there's going to be stories. The media is all over this, Brian. They want to share stories of funding not getting to something that, was doing a little bit of good. But see, that's going to happen. You have to cut this stuff overall, and there's no way to do it without some casualties. But I think if you define what you're going for and then have a little more organization on the process, you keep the American people bought in. Because to your point, there's nobody who disagrees that they need to get rid of this and make it more efficient. It's just when you get in the details, it gets harder.
I was stunned to see when you break down what we're spending it on, 7.2% of our budget goes to the interest on the debt that we're spending.
It's very low.
Yeah. But we are spending but the number one factor of our, I guess, would you put as non-discretionary spending?
Well, mandatory spending is up to 70%. It used to be 30 mandatory, 70 discretionary. It's now 70 mandatory, 30 discretionary. If the American people knew what I just said, they would be stunned. Right. It's the most stunning thing you can say.
Because you're only voting for people to affect the budget, 30% of the budget.
Barely that, because really a lot of the other stuff you can't do much about either.
Right. So how do we fold that out?
And see, here's the thing. There are people, and I'm not one of them, and the Reaganite right is not one of them, that then say national defense becomes in the chopping block. And that's one of the only things I believe is a legitimate function of a federal government, is to protect us. Yeah. So really, if you count, as I do, national defense is mandatory, you have much less than 30% on the chopping block.
Right.
So fraud, waste, and corruption in the effort of Doge becomes a very significant part. And then ultimately, the conversation everyone's trying to avoid, you're going to have to get to the 70, which is entitlements.
So when you see the attacks on Elon Musk's company, Tesla, knowing that he's heading this up, to me, every business person who has got a degree of success that might want to one day work in government might be saying, I got to think twice about it. My motivation is pure, but the country is so polarized. I have to worry about my family. I got to worry about my product. I got to worry about my stock.
Well, and that's been there for some time, that high-profile companies, especially publicly traded ones, are going to have a certain spotlight. This is at a level we've never seen, but Musk has a role we've never seen, too. In fairness, he invited this, but the way they're behaving is over the top. I think if you're going to be a high public figure and say, I want to go work in something as controversial and audacious as Doge, you're taking on some of the controversy. But Elon is a big boy. He can handle it. And he has multiple entities he's turned into centibillionaire companies. I would simply say the problem I have is not that people are mad at Tesla and that they want to have political opinions about it. It's the violence. It's the vandalism. It's the French revolutionary behavior. Dissent in our country does not mean law breaking.
So here is Elon Musk talking about what it means for him and his staff. We met a couple of them the other day on Laura Ingram's show, 30-something-year-old software engineers who give up 6 months to work in the government. Their way of giving back, cut 18.
Just trying to do the right thing for the American taxpayer and for the American people. Just a thank you to the Doge team who are literally getting death threats and being accosted, and these are, a lot of them are just kids. They're just trying to help out, and they're very talented. They could get jobs for millions of dollars a year. Instead, they come here, earn peanuts, and get death threats. So thanks to the Doge team.
It reminds me a little bit, although these guys are 32, they're probably some of the older ones, right? I mean, these are guys that have their whole life in front of them. They're young and talented, and they are doing it with right motives, and this is the thanks they get. I will say Obama's administration did this, too, to a lot of finance people. After 2008, there were people going back trying to fix AIG, fix Fannie and Freddie, this was complicated financial stuff, and they got demonized for it. And you're right. There's a message in there of no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. David Bahnsen, thanks so much from the Bahnsen Group. It's going to be an interesting time.